There is no better traveler than our next, who is dedicated his career to traveling the world and doing just that. Normally, we experience his journeys through our TV screens, at home, on our couch, with his nationally broadcast show. Today, we get to experience it through his eyes. So I am incredibly honored to introduce the host of the Voyager and trailblazer himself, Josh Garcia.
Good morning, Inteletravel. Wow. This is by far the biggest group I have ever had the chance to address in one sitting. Now, it might just seem like I'm up here all confident, but collectively, you are all very intimidating. Now, everyone here represents some division of the travel industry, correct? But I'm curious, how many of us are travel agents, or rather, travel advisors? Okay, then you'll find this interesting. Check this out. Recently, someone asked me, who even uses travel advisors anymore? Yeah, that's what they said about you. They said, it's just booking flights. Anyone can do that. Who's heard something similar? Or maybe you yourself thought this way before getting into the industry. Now, I'm not a travel advisor, but that doesn't change the fact that we have plenty in common, believe it or not. First and foremost, we have all done our fair share of travel advising charity prior to making money in the industry. Is that true? It's almost an inevitable part of what we do. As a matter of fact, even up till today, I still get plenty of messages on social media that demonstrate of what tremendous value each of you are. Can I read you some of the messages I've gotten over the years? You really want to hear them? They're quite comical. Story 1. Dear Josh, despite our fear of flying, your Honolulu episode inspired us to get out of our bubble and treat ourselves to a Hawaiian adventure. How sweet, right? Can you tell us which train we can take to get there? That right there was my first indicator that maybe these two haven't traveled much, but then they continued. Sincerely, Dan and Tammy from New Mexico. Now, I've failed geography over and over again, but I think these two take the cake. Dear Voyager Josh, I hope this message finds you well. But instead of cruising, this time I'm taking an airplane to Sydney, and I can't wait to explore the places you went in your show. Now, it's a long flight, but it's okay because I booked a window seat. So at least I'll get some fresh air. James. Now, for James's sake, I certainly hope his window seat window is not operable. But I wish him all the fresh air his little heart desires. I really do. Okay, bear with me here, one more. Josh, hello from LA. My husband and I departed Miami today at 8 a.m. to discover your city, the City of Angels. But even though I was told the flight was only 6 hours long, it was actually only 3, because we landed way ahead of schedule. I know it's a long shot, but we got a little more time than we planned, and I'd love to meet you if we could. Marisol. I wrote her back, actually, because I realized Marisol didn't understand what time zones were, and that's okay. So we went back and forth a bit, and she insisted, no, Josh the Voyager, my flight was only 3 hours long because I landed at 11 a.m. So eventually I just gave up and I said, you know what, Marisol, you're right. Flights these days, whew, they are so fast. They are so fast. Bless her. These are just a few of many examples that clearly demonstrate my point, that even if your sole purpose was just to book flights, as this person presumed, then there's still a huge demand for what you do. Because clearly not everyone's cut out for it, right? But I know that's not all you do. You're also tasked with the demand to provide guidance, expertise. You have to have the ability to design a custom experience for someone who you may or may not know that well, in a place you yourself may have never been. Which is just a bit of pressure, right? Because if you think about it, people are putting down their hard-earned money and trusting you with it, and you got to think of all the things that no one else does. It's that personal touch that can make or break someone else's experience, and it lands on your shoulders. So you're probably asking yourself, that's nice, Josh. That's really nice. Why on earth did my company, Inteletravel, invite you to come speak to us today? The answer's simple, guys. I have no idea. But here's what I do know. I am honored to have the opportunity to stand in front of so many people like yourselves, whether you realize it or not, because you are helping to create the stories that others write about in their journals, and the same stories that they'll probably go tell their grandkids, and the unforgettable memories that shape the best of humanity's character. And that's what life is. That's what the human experience is about. I mean, what's life if it's not just one big memory in the end? So give yourselves a hand for mixing up the routine and making those special moments for everybody else happen. Such a tall order. Who grew up here being an active traveler? I'm curious. Who grew up as a child traveling a lot? Oh, wow, there's a lot of you. I'm a little jealous. I'm learning that even though I work in travel television, most assume that I popped out of the womb just on a plane, right? I've been traveling my whole life, but the truth is, growing up, we never really did much travel at all. We never really even left our small town. We didn't have the money, but I suspect that even if we did, my family was just the type to stay local, right? And that's okay. But as a kid, I had a few other windows to the outside world, like ESPN, the Travel Channel, and I even had some buddies that would travel. And they would always come back with these stories that had one common thread. The world is amazing, and I don't think people like Americans very much. People don't like us? People don't like me? I'm American. They don't even know me. Why don't they like you? I like you. If this world is filled with good people, how can they just blanket term me because I'm American and not like me? How are American tourists bumping heads with the locals in the countries that they visit? The travel in me couldn't wait to leave my small town and learn more about why. And the people pleaser in me really wanted to change that. One of my biggest first trips outside of work as a tourist was to Southeast Asia. We shot the Voyager there, but this was way before that. I went to what's called the floating market in Bangkok. And it's essentially, for those of you who don't know, it's a farmer's market on boats that displays a rainbow of tropical produce, all in boats. And each boat had more colors than the last. And most of these colors and flavors were being made by an endless variety of fruits and vegetables that I had never seen before. I wanted to taste everything. It was beautiful. Anyone been there? Bangkok's floating market? Pretty cool. Now you understand the backdrop of my story. Well, there was this adorable elderly woman, and she was selling 1 million unrecognizable edibles. And she paddled up to me, and one thing she was selling that I was interested in was these delicate little pods. And they were so meticulously stuffed with rice and wrapped with folded banana leaf. They were incredible. I mean, just culinary masterpieces that only the most dexterous of abuelita hands can really make, right? And I asked her how much different things on her boat cost, right? And she insisted, no speak English, no speak English, no speak English. Okay, well, I didn't speak Thai. But what we would do is she would hold up fingers to communicate how much each item was. So it wasn't going to be the simplest transaction in the world, but hey, I'm a smart guy, I could do this. On top of that, and you may have seen this too, I remember reading so many times when making purchases at an open market, you always barter down. Everyone else ever heard that before? Yeah, right? You don't just take the first price. Come on. Well, now you're all accomplices in the story I'm about to tell you. No speak English, she would say. So with her hands, she does this, 10 cents. That's what she wanted for each rice pod. But not American cents, Thai baht cents. You know what that's worth? Less than 1/3 of an American penny. So something pushed me to play up the sort of persona that I'm not going to be taken for a fool. I am an experienced traveler, and I barter. Now, she was already asking for pretty much next to nothing, so my genius idea was to offer her half of next to nothing. And she stopped, and she gave me this look of disgust. Like, are you serious? And in perfect English, she goes, "You, cheap American." And she paddled away. I blew it. I never got the chance to try that beautiful rice concoction I wanted so bad. And I was being exactly what I hoped not to be, an unwelcome American tourist. I blew it. Since then, I've learned to be a little bit more reasonable in my bartering. But working in travel today and meeting so many people from so many different countries really gives me the opportunities to check in on our image. How are we doing? And no joke, I often ask, how do you feel about the American tourist? How do you feel? I want to know. And one of the most interesting responses I ever got was in Vietnam over a perfect bowl of noodles with a chef we were working with for the show. And she had said something really interesting. She said, Americans like, how are you ping pong? Yeah. How are you ping pong? Ping pong, how are you? I said, I'm sorry, I don't understand what you're talking about. You got to elaborate for me, my love. What do you mean? Americans aren't asking how you are. The American isn't interested in your personal life. How are you is just hello. Every day and always it is, how are you? Good. And you? Pretty good. That's good. And she said, that's what Americans do with each other all day long, like ping pong. It's how are you ping pong? And the embarrassing part was she was right. I couldn't argue with her. So not knowingly, she taught me to be maybe a little bit more authentic with my how are yous outside, but also even inside my own country. Other than that, you'll be happy to hear that I've found people really do like Americans, and almost everywhere I go, this is what I get. Americans are kind, we are polite, and because of our culture, we tip well. And I think our positive image in tourism has a lot to do with a growing awareness that is encouraged by many people like yourselves who are actively making this kind of travel education a part of your agenda, inside or outside the office, huh? So if that's what you're doing, it's working. Keep it up. So this noodle chef and this lovely lady in the Thai boat taught me a lesson, not knowingly, but they did. And I've seen how travel teaches us. It teaches so many of us composure, patience, how to love one another despite our differences. For me, it's broadened my horizons. It fosters understanding. It promotes cultural exchange. I most often come back from my travels feeling renewed, like I shed a layer, right? I know you felt that too. But to be honest, for most of my life, there's been some resistance for me around travel. But less about travel and more about getting outside of my comfort zone. especially for those long trips, mostly because I have fear of missing out on my life back home. Kind of like the world will leave me behind. But the funny thing is when I return home, I found nothing has changed. Everyone's the same. Nothing remotely is what I have experienced out in the world has happened at home. So when I return, it's like I never left. I haven't missed a thing, actually. When I leave, everyone is fine. When I come back, everyone's fine. 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 Out on the road, I grow. I evolve. I learn who I am. The road has made me the man I am today. Each day is enormous. It's a breakthrough. And then eventually I become not so afraid of missing out anymore. As a matter of fact, here's what I'm really afraid of. With all my friends and my family, they're all the same, they're fine. And I'm getting to a point where fine is not enough. Fine doesn't interest me. I need more from my human connections. But my friends and my family, I'm a little worried that sometimes I may no longer be even able to relate to them. That is how transformative the power of travel has been for me. Now, there's something bittersweet going on there, right? But the power of getting away from our routine and seeing another side of the world is undeniable, which is why we keep going back for more. And that is why travel has always been seen as inherently good. Could we all agree on that? Travel has been seen as inherently good, and I believe that it is. And to add to that, for most of my life, I would say that I've even had this notion that I can go anywhere, I can do anything, and I really wouldn't have much of an impact, or at least the kind of impact I need to worry about. But then I started working in travel. In the age of irresponsible tourism and heightened concerns about climate change, income inequality, over-tourism, animal welfare, corporate greed, environmental exploitation, the heaviness, where'd all the fun go? And because I work and travel publicly, every move I make, and possibly every move you make too, is the subject of some sort of scrutiny, which wasn't there before. People are watching us. I get questions like, you went where? You know there's over-tourism there, right? And a housing crisis, too. Was your Airbnb legal? Was it even legal? Josh, please tell me you bought carbon offsets for those flights. Don't you know that orphanage tourism is problematic? And are you sure that resort was locally owned? My first defense was to shift the moral responsibility away from myself, the tourist, and towards the technology in the airplane, or the cruise ship, or to someone else or something else, somewhere else in the world that I had little to no control over. But that was just my ego. Maybe I was being a bit ignorant. But then after shooting the Voyager and traveling the world for 3 years and being so touched and inspired by it and all of its inhabitants, at some point I began to think, I'd really like to be a little bit more accountable for my choices. My conscience unknowingly led me towards this collective consciousness that naturally an awareness sprouted from within me. So when I choose to learn from my experience, it changes the way I behave, my actions, my wants, my needs, and how I travel. And the way I navigate the globe today is very different now than it used to be. Now, listen, it's not about being perfect. It's more about going in with mindfulness, awareness, making better decisions, and doing my best to be an active contributor to the environment in which I share with you and all of my other fellow men. In other words, I believe the right kind of tourism should create better places for residents and wildlife to live, not just for tourists to visit. Did you get that? going to say that again. Who heard that? Here we go. The right kind of tourism should create better places for residents and wildlife to live, not just for tourists to visit. So here's what we can do. How do we do that, right? Well, you guys are planners, and that's a huge part of this. But nobody likes to talk about. But out of all the forms of transportation out there, which one is the thirstiest? Any ideas? It's planes. Planes are by far the thirstiest of the bunch. But I can't point the finger. I didn't walk here. I flew. But because we're living in the age of low-cost airfare, it makes it easier than ever to jet around the globe, which is great for my wallet, but not ideal for the good old carbon footprint, is it? So what's the solution? Well, easy. Let's get some planes that don't use jet fuel. But while we're working on that, and we are working on that, I wonder, what can I do now? How can I cut back today? Well, luckily, there's other modes of transportation, right? Fuel-efficient cars, buses, trains, or biking. You're asking yourself, did he just say biking? Yes, surprise! On behalf of Inteletravel, we are canceling all of your flights and you're all biking home. I'm messing with you. But no, really, truthfully, I've done many a long-distance bike trip as a form of tourism, and it is one of the most rewarding out there. It's not for everyone, but it's an option if you're up for it. Highly recommended. Here's what we can do on our regarding fuel consumption specifically. It's as simple as doing just a little bit of math. So for those of us that take maybe multiple vacations a year, right, and that's many of us, including myself, I can consider combining a couple of my vacations for one longer one to eliminate all the back and the forth flying. So instead of 4 trips to Europe a year, for example, maybe I'll just do 2 and make them longer. And just by doing that one little thing, I get to not only be more present in my environment because I'm staying a bit longer, but I have reduced my annual CO2 consumption of jet fuel by 50%. That's huge. Just thinking out loud, that's huge. That's just one of the many things we can do there. It's big. And what about food? As you can see, I love food. It's one of the best forms of travel. And in my opinion, the gateway to immersion experiences, right? I mean, what's Thailand without pad thai? Or Mexico without a taco truck? And how can I go to Naples without a pizza dinner? I can't. It would be a crime against humanity. I have experienced so many unforgettable moments via culinary tourism, and I think that's why I love to eat so much, and probably you do too. But in my travels, and I'll be honest with you, I saw firsthand the impacts of animal agriculture on our planet, and I learned that my demand for meat, dairy, and eggs had some of the biggest effects on our environment. It was one of the biggest contributors to climate change, and also I knew we could do better. So I decided to go vegan because I learned I can save 150,000 gallons of water annually by sticking to a plant-based diet, reduce my land consumption by 95% so I could free it up for others, and I use 66% less CO2 to nurture myself, to nourish myself. So when they say one person can't make a difference, that's simply not true. These statistics make me the very opposite of a powerless person, don't they? So choosing to consume more plant-based products in lieu of our animal-based counterparts is one of the best things I can do as a citizen of this planet, whether I'm traveling or not. How many people have I made so brutally uncomfortable by just bringing this up right now? Come on, be honest. It's okay. I was there once. Hang in there, I got a little bit more. So I took a risk. I leaned into the science and I went vegan. And not only did my blood pressure and my high cholesterol go down, actually disappeared completely, but I never enjoyed food as much as I do now. And the best part is I still eat all the things I used to, like pizza in Italy, cheese and croissants in Paris, and burgers and milkshakes on July 4th. I just choose the animal product-free variety. That's all. Plus I lost fat, I gained muscle, and food has never been more interesting. Are you guys hitting on me? Will you stop? Will you stop, you pigs? Check this out, though. There's this app out there that actually really helped me a lot, and they're not paying me for this, but it's called Happy Cow. And regardless of where you are in the world, whether it be a Greek island, Hawaii, or right here in Vegas, it gives you an aerial perspective of all of the eco-friendly, vegan, vegetarian, forward-thinking restaurants in your area that have a minimal impact in your area. That's how I eat on my travels, and that's also how I eat every day now at home if I can. And if I mess up, it's okay. I'm not perfect. I never proclaimed to be. I self-correct, and I get back to it. And it is by far one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. So if you've ever thought about it, I'd love to encourage you to give it a shot. And finally, there's just a few other things I recommend everyone not leave home without. One thing that saves me so much waste every time I travel is the simplest thing in the world. It's a canvas grocery tote. I pack one every time because for years I've been doing this, and I'm always amazed how much less garbage I create just by bringing around a canvas bag. My other indispensable travel counterpart is a slim, lightweight water bottle made of aluminum. It lasts forever. And it replaces all the single-use plastic I would normally use. And I drink a lot of water, huh? This comes to the rescue at the airport, in the city, wherever I may be. And last but not least, my common sense is indispensable. For example, maybe I'll just use these lips instead of a plastic straw. I don't know, call me crazy. Maybe I'll choose an Airbnb owned by a local instead of an investor or a large corporation who bought up swaths of land. Maybe. Maybe I'll hold on to my towel a few more times before we're letting it get washed again and again by my hotel. Any of these little efforts we make go a long way, especially collectively. But where do we go on this giant planet? What are the greenest places we can go? You ever thought about it? It's anywhere with trees. Why? Because these green places need us. To name a few, the Peruvian and Brazilian Amazon, Newfoundland, and the Northwest Territories of Canada, Romania, the Balkans, the national parks of the USA and South Africa, and the islands and sanctuaries of Asia, just to name a few. Literally anywhere with trees needs tourism. When I travel to natural habitats like these, I show locals and businesses and policymakers that there's value in preserving these places. This is why tourism is so good for our planet. This is why what you do is so good for our planet. You make viable economic alternatives for these people, which in turn fuels jobs and gives a real-time value to our natural resources, to our parks, to our forests, and to our wildlands. Now, I'm not saying you can't have your Venice and Rome. I love those places. Or that you can't do this and you can only do this because Josh said. No. All I want to do is make voluntourism and ecotourism and mindfulness a normalized component of every trip I take. And hopefully every trip you take, and those you advise as well. So why do I care so much? And just because I care, why should you? While shooting the Voyager over dinner in Oslo, a colleague on my production team had said to me, Josh, I got 80-something years on this planet if I'm lucky. If the planet's going to hell, why bother trying to say it when I could just live the big life for the short time I'm here? I've noticed when we think about the definition of the big life, it's often perceived of having enough money to consume more. And that more is usually only for me and those inside my immediate circle, right? But what if I could step away from a self-serving approach and instead try something a little different? Now, I've traveled the entire globe. I've stayed in the most expensive homes, and I've gorged myself on the best food. I've made excellent money, living harder and bigger than most everyone I know. And here's what I've learned. By dedicating myself to a life of education, altruism, activism, and humanitarianism, not perfection, I feel true joy and bliss so much more than I ever did living carelessly. And because the universe continues to match my contributions, I get more, I enjoy more, I feel more, which grants me access to a canyon of satisfaction and gratitude that I never fathomed possible. And as a result, my love for others is enhanced. My happiness bleeds deeper. I grow richer, and I feel the full spectrum of my connection to everything and everyone. This is what the big life is really about. Thank you. Thank you. I cannot live my 80 years on this magnificent planet knowing I sat back and did nothing. I say, don't do nothing just because you can't do everything. Do something, anything. Check this out. This is one of my favorite sayings ever. Our biggest fear isn't that we are inadequate. It's that we are all powerful beyond measure. Amen to that. Whew. There's one person here before I wrap up I'd really love to acknowledge today, you guys. It's my beautiful and very stubborn, hard-headed grandmother. Bless her heart. Every time I say, Grandma, I'm gonna go do a lecture. Grandma, I'm gonna go here. Do you wanna come? She goes, yeah, I'd love to. And I'm always like, do you? Really? She goes, no, this time I'm really gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. And then, of course, right before it's time, she goes, you know, Buppy, my couch is so comfortable. Take a picture for me. I was like, I knew that was happening. So this is what I'm gonna do, and I want your help. I wanna make Grandma's day, and I want you guys to help me. I'm gonna get out my phone, and I'm gonna say, hey, Grandma, I just want you to meet some of my friends here at Inteletravel Quest, and I'm gonna pan, and you're all gonna go, hey, Grandma, and go flipping nuts for her. And I'm gonna post it on social media. She's gonna feel very touched. And if you guys wanna do your angle and post that on social media, then I would add that to my story, and she can see that, how many people here are making her feel special. She's 88, she can't get out anymore, and I wanna share my experiences with her as best as I can. But why just me when I got all of you? Are you ready? Okay, shh. Here we go. You promise to go nuts? Hey, Grandma, it's me, Josh. I just kind of hanging out here with some of my friends at Inteletravel Quest, and I thought you might want to meet them. Hi, Grandma. We love you. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for coming here today, giving me purpose, making me feel expressed and heard, and listening to my message. I'm wishing you all an abundant 2020 filled with life's most beautiful adventures. Have a beautiful year. Thank you so much. Thank you.